Ben Jacobson. This is my response for session 3. Why is it important to keep track of the risk score for each task as well as the risk score for each risk? The project management guide states that the risk score helps guide risk responses. So, concisely, the risk score is going to help us prioritize our risk response uh, collectively and for each risk separately. A threat, a threatening risk may require more aggressive action, where an opportunity risk might also require or demand priority action, or it may not, depending on where it falls on the risk register based on stakeholder or company priorities. Under what circumstances should you use quantitative risk analysis? Quantitative risk analysis might not be appropriate necessarily for smaller projects, um, where qualitative risk analysis might be sufficient. Quantitative risk analysis is going to require very precise data, um, very possibly time consuming resources and stakeholder input, very precise data. So the quantitative risk analysis is going to be very dependent on that data being incredibly accurate. Um, Furthermore, the quantitative risk analysis is going to estimate uh, those collective risks on the overall project objectives, where qualitative might be sufficient with the data available uh, to coordinate risk response. So the quantitative risk analysis is going to give you an overall picture, um, and it might not necessarily be appropriate in all circumstances. How do you think many people, or excuse me, why do you think many people are uncomfortable with the quantitative technique? Um, Possibly because the data needs to be so precise, and um, any mistake in that data or in the technique used could affect the analysis, whereas the qualitative approach, the data can be precise enough and still warrant a perfectly applicable response. The quantitative technique is going to be very dependent on that data being very, very accurate. How did Nehemiah assess project risk based on the biblical perspective you read, and how would you apply this in your life? Reading Nehemiah 6, the first thing that came to mind when he was receiving those letters from his enemies to try to bring him away from the project, Nehemiah remained focused on the project, and that those distractions in any project is a risk when we are, as project managers, essentially what Nehemiah was. Those distractions can be a threatening risk when we lose sight of the project goals. So, uh, in Nehemiah 6, that was an underlying theme for me. And so he, was focused on the wall and the building of that wall, that project. And so going to Ono in enemy territory would have been not only hazardous from a safety standpoint, but it's a distraction. It would have removed him from the project, taking time away from the building. So how would you apply this in your life? As anything in God's word, it's highly applicable to us in the 21st century. Um, Nehemiah's focus on his task is incredibly important, especially to us where we have constant distractions every day, whether it's family issues, our cell phones, our friends, various tasks at work, problems at work, weather conditions, just a variety of things can affect our focus. And for that reason, Nehemiah's focus on his project is highly applicable to me, with so much going on in my life, from a new baby to college to working 60, 70 hours a week to an apprenticeship. Um, Staying focused is a definite challenge, but to be present in the moment and um, to remember priorities. And when I'm at work, to be at work. When I'm at home, to be at home. Uh, so that Nehemiah 6 was definitely applicable from that standpoint to my life. Thank you.